welcome to the WP podcast WordPress and Tech. I'm your co-host along with Jonathan Denwood. Now you can see him. It's podcast. I can't even remember this number again because there's people coming in, just jumping in.
You should be able to take it's 642. You want to do it again?
I'm going to do it again. Hello, Steph. Right, shush, everybody. Welcome to the WP-Tonic podcast. This week in WordPress and Tech, I'm your co-host Andrew Palmer along with Jonathan Denwood, and it's podcast number 642. Let's do a round table and let people introduce themselves. Our special guest this week is Robert Jacobi. Tell us all about you and where people can find you, Robert.
Thanks so much, Andrew. I'm Robert Jacobi, Director of WordPress at CloudWays. So I can easily be found at cloudways.com or robertjacobi.com or at robertjacobi. And yeah, handle all things sort of WordPress related at CloudWays.
Great. So Heather, nice to see you nice and early. Introduce yourself and tell us where you can find where we can find you.
Hi, I am Heather Wild-Renzi. I am the CTO of The Difference Consulting, and you can find me on online at Heathriel and heathriel.com.
And welcome to a fellow redhead, or I'm going a bit grey these days, but Stephanie Hudson. Haven't seen you for a while from Focus WP. Tell us all about yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. Am I glitching a little bit? I don't know. It looks like I am. But my name is Stephanie Hudson. I run Focus WP, where we help small agencies and solopreneurs and freelancers to scale and grow their business by outsourcing the stuff they don't want to do or aren't good at and sticking to their zone of genius. You can find me at focuswp.co.
And Jonathan Denwood, my co-host, he's next up.
Hi there, folks. I'm the founder of WP-Tonic. We help e-learning entrepreneurs build their dreams on WordPress. Over to you, Andrew.
And Sally Getch rhymes with sketch. Tell us all about yourself quickly.
I don't know if I could tell you all about myself quickly, but I am, as you say, Sally Getch, the WP fangirl, organizer of the East Bay WordPress meetup, and I'm only on this show because Jonathan likes my cats.
That's
I love you. You need to turn your volume down a little bit, Sally.
It's just a bit loud, Sally, but that's fine. Spencer Foreman, let's hear from you. We can see you smiling there.
Good morning, Spencer Foreman from WPLaunchify.com.
Oh, that's great. So this week's articles, we're going to just discuss On With My Head. Facebook changed its company, and we're going to get through to hopefully some unredacted stuff about Google. But for the moment, we're going to visit our sponsor, Castos, and we'll see you in a few moments. And we're back. Right, the first thing I want to talk about is On With My Head. It's a return from Headless WordPress, and it's all about Aaron Jacobi talking about the fact that he's going back to WordPress with a head. Now, Robert Jacobi, as you're the director of WordPress at CloudWays, you're the first one to comment on this. What are your thoughts on this article? Did you read it?
So I've been trying to think of this word for actually a while, and headful sounds crazy, but I'm going to go with headful at the moment. I think across the board in hosting, the performance increases don't necessarily necessitate that crazy giant architecture that can be difficult to manage. You know, some folks are making that much easier to utilize. I mean, you have the whole Jamstack world of things. You have companies like Stratic who are trying to make that easier. But you're going to get faster and faster and faster WordPress hosting. So headful hosting, I'm still bullish on. I don't, it's another architecture, but it's the easiest architecture for anyone to implementing it going with.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, how fast do you want a website to be? It can only be as fast as your internet connection, can't it, really? And we're going round and round in circles saying, but there's a lot of things about headless WordPress that certainly Stratic and other companies are saying it's more secure. And talking about secure, I'm very secure in asking Heather Wild-Renzi what she thinks about that, because she's a cybersecurity expert. And that's a nice segue.
So, I mean, one of the things, when I read this article and I heard him saying that he was pulling data from 3 different WordPress sites, my radar immediately went off. I was like, oh no, that's like more APIs to 1, go down and 2, be hacked. So every API you do, like that's developers trying to do workarounds. And like if you're doing it on a website, you have to deal with cores and all sorts of things. Like, I mean, anyone that's nodding their head, like listening to this and like, oh no, I've dealt with cores errors with WordPress and any other site. So it's, if you're trying to use WordPress as just like a database to run another site, then why? There's so many better solutions. I don't understand.
I don't think anybody really who uses WordPress on a day-to-day basis understands it. Do you understand it, Stephanie Hudson?
I think that headless WordPress is like the hipster website thing, right? Because it's like, it's something that is old that they're making like, oh, this is cool because it's new, because we knew about this first. And I really appreciated this guy because he's like, you know, hipsters will never ever admit that those bowler caps are not comfortable, or they won't admit that their hand rolled cigarettes are better than the other. You know, like they don't admit it. I'm sure that coffee is so good because it's been like pour over and all that stuff. You know what I mean? And like, don't judge me in my Keurig because I'm perfectly happy. But you know, like you say, like, how much are you shaving? I mean, my sites are loading in 2 seconds as it is. The thing I see for those kind of sites like headless, it's like if you don't want to have the maintenance and the ongoing security risks and stuff like that, if it's flat, if it doesn't have a ton of dynamic stuff, to me, that's what it is. But then again, I'm not a hipster. I'm not cool. So that's
you know, Sally, you run a WordPress meetup. What are people talking about in the meetups on the headless? Are they taking any notice of it, or are they just ignoring it?
We haven't had anybody produce speak about headless at my meetup, but I know it's, you know, it's come up a lot. It's like kind of the big hotness, and yet, you know, as he said, you run into a number of bumps. And a number of things that you have to customize. And even though, you know, there's more headless stuff rolling out and more talk about it, I still haven't found a good use for it or way to wrap my head around it.
Fair enough. Right, I'm going to move on to the next story because I think we've had the opinions, the valuable opinions of people who are using WordPress every day. Now, Facebook, it changed its name to Meta. I'm going to give my co-host a chance here. If he starts ranting, I'm in control of the mute button.
That's what
Spencer is as well. I'll just give Spencer a nod. Jonathan
I thought
Denver.
Spencer was applauding that, but he was killing a bug.
Spencer,
We got a bad look.
Heather's disappeared because she knows there's a rant coming up. So Jonathan Denwood.
No rant. It was, you know, Robot Man,
Mm-hmm.
and Lizard Man, you know, Nick Clegg together, Robot Man and Lizard Man, you know. This ain't going to be a dystopia world, isn't it? You know, letting Mark Zuckerberg, you know, build the virtual web. If there's ever been, you know, come and join us on this podcast and join WordPress, join the Rebel Alliance, and let's fight this evil empire. What a nightmare, you know. Oh my God, fathers, did you watch his presentation? I want to build virtual world and control everything that's in your mind. You know, what a nightmare. Over to you, Andrew.
Well, I think Spencer has a view on this, and you know, because he's got his legal background, he's not going to say anything nasty. So go for it, Spencer.
Okay, well,
what do you think of the name for a start, Spencer? You're a bit.
First of all, I want to say it's a pleasure to have Robert on the show as a fellow Chicagoan, but also because I'm a huge fan of how CloudWays handles a lot of stuff. So we do recommend your product to a lot of people for the reasons you guys are doing well. So as far as this,
I recommend my product.
You can stop interrupting
I
straight
can
away.
be friends with more than one person besides you, Jonathan, and it doesn't mean I love you less. The thing about the Meta situation is twofold. In reading the article, it seems very transparent to me that he's essentially saying the walls are closing in on regulating and deregulating and doing things to control my ability to violate all of your trust. So I'm going to create through the Oculus Rift, which, by the way, you guys remember I bought during our staycation for my kids during the pandemic. And it's a really cool product, but you have to register your Oculus Rift 2 through Facebook. And it seems very clear that he's had for some time a plan that he's going to escape to his own private island inside of the metaverse. And he's going to pull everybody who's willing to believe him into it so that he can escape the wrath of Apple and the governments and common sense and the controls over his advertising. Because in his own Oculus Rift world, he can do anything he wants. What is really weird to me, although I won't use the terms as Jonathan, like dystopian, it seems really weird to me, having used the Oculus Rift, which is a great product, that anybody would want to spend that much time inside of there, because it's really disorienting. Even without my 55-year-old mindset, even for my kids, like nobody really wants to be in there all the time. It's like sort of going into an amusement park ride and you come out in the sunshine and you're like, whoa. So I find this interesting that he's making such a desperate play for this, because the fact that he's doing this indicates to my mindset that he's like ready to cut the cord and just jettison off that stuff that got him where he's at today in order to go to this island.
I get that. And, you know, there's a film with Bruce Willis in it, and I'm looking for it on my internet, but it's running a bit slow at the moment. But it's where people are, I think it's called, it's not Avatar, but they're using Avatar. So they walk around, basically, it's a robot or a version of themselves in the street. Now, Heather, I'm going to talk about naming conventions here, because you kind of started Evernote and you found a name. How long did it take you to come up with a name like Evernote?
So Evernote was actually, so Phil Libin actually came up with the name Ribbon for the company, and it was terrible. And I kept telling him it was terrible. Because he wanted it to be a ribbon of your memories, and because originally like the product had a tape like that was just over and over, and he's like, yeah, we need a ribbon. And and so what we did was we actually bought a company called Evernote with a capital N. So they had come up with it. And that is a much better way to go. But they, like Stefan Pachkov, who'd come up with the name Evernote, like it had come to him in a dream. But the thing is, like what pisses me off about like the Facebook rebrand is that, like, I hope that people don't forget that like Snow Crash is an amazing book, and that Neil Stephenson came up with the metaverse, like, and he owns this. It's like out there forever from everyone, and now like Facebook is trying to take over this thing that's been like, I mean, that's this amazing concept that has been in the public domain forever. I mean, we were talking about like public domain issues and like somebody co-opting them, and then there's this whole thing with the .NET Foundation with like people trying to co-opt things from the public domain that's happening as well. So like this seems to be like, so Neil Stephenson, who is one of my favorite authors, like coined the term the metaverse, and now like, yeah, so yeah, I'm not happy.
How much do you think they paid for that domain?
I love the fact that you're not happy for a start. You got a massive smile on your face. You know, for people listening to this, they can't see your face. But Stephanie, do you actually care about this? I mean, you've got a massive Facebook group, you know, or not massive, but big enough, and you run it really well. You know, it's full of the nicest people in the world. So, what do you think about Jonathan's comment that we're going to join the rebellion and ditch Facebook? I'm not for a start, but you know,
I'm not. No, I didn't say that at all. I did say
join the rebellion.
No, join the alliance, but you know, join open source. I use WordPress, but
wow, Facebook.
You know,
Facebook,
but
Facebook.
You know,
anyway, I've asked
if you're a decent developer, for God's sake, don't work for Facebook. God, go somewhere else. For God's sake.
You realize this is going to turn into it's like there will be a certain set of people who go there and do it, and then that will be the people market. It kind of gives me a little inkling of this. I can't remember the name of it for a second. I have a senior moment. What's the audio platform right now where people talk and listen? Somebody help me out.
Clubhouse.
Clubhouse. It kind of reminds, like Clubhouse got a lot of initial like, whoa, check out Clubhouse, and then when you go to use it, you got to sit there and listen to 10 people talking with no control to get to the point. And I feel like
it's a bit like this podcast.
But if you go into that space, you'll either love it or hate it. But I don't think it's going to be the same kind of global appeal. I mean, but right now Facebook is that way. Kids under a certain age don't use Facebook, and that's what they're worried about. Yeah.
And why should they? And now back to the original person that I asked the question to before two men just interrupted us. Stephanie Hudson, what do you reckon?
You're fine. I think like I get what he's trying to do. I think first up, we've got to have you ever seen an avatar more accurate though? Like, I think it's because he already looks like a robot. But I was just scrolling through and I was like, oh, that's Mark Zuckerberg. Like, you can actually recognize him in his avatar, which is hilarious because he already looks a little plasticky. But I mean, what's your point? Like, what's your point of using Facebook? I'm not really on there for the political commentary. That's the worst part of it and everything like that. I'm there because that's where my customers are. So I'm not going to jump ship in an act of rebellion. Who's going to win there? Like, not me if my customers are there. I have some people that are on Circle right now, and I'm in a couple groups there that I've been invited to. And honestly, it's a pain in the neck. Circle's a great platform, but like, I hate having one more place to, like, I just don't want any more places to have to check this particular moment. I'm not against new things, but like right now I'm on overload. And so I'm not going anywhere for the moment. As long as my customers, if my customer base jumps ship, then yeah, I'll jump ship too.
Yeah,
I'm not an idealist about it though.
I just want to quickly say that I've got nothing against Facebook. Facebook could be a really great platform. Unfortunately, it's the founder, it's the executives, and it's the board of Facebook that are the problem. Not all the. I'm sure there's a ton of lovely people working at Facebook. There's, it's just the higher echelon that are the problem.
Yeah. Well, they keep getting rid of all the ethics. People.
Well, I was going to say, it's like saying some of my best friends work at Facebook, which they don't. So, I mean, that's not going to be the case.
My thing is, why, once you have like a couple $1 billion, why do you want to leave Earth? Like, every billionaire either wants to go to Mars or a fake universe. Like, I guess I could stop trying to be a billionaire because that seems.
I wonder why.
You are so on point there, Stephanie. You're really on point. Now, Robert Jacobi, your CloudWays uses Facebook in a massive way. You've got Mavericks out there doing Facebook Lives. You've got people posting about CloudWays. You've got people recommending CloudWays all over the conversation about CloudWays is all over Facebook, all over the Facebook groups. Is that something that CloudWays kind of planned, or what happens to CloudWays if Facebook disappears off the face of the earth?
Well, so I can't technically take a dump on Facebook just because of that. I mean, to Stephanie's point, there's a ton of audience there. And sure, if you have that right audience, you're fine. I don't like Facebook, and you're not going to find me there. You're not going to find me there in the metaverse version of Facebook. It's annoyance overload for me. But if you know how to navigate it, which I think gets more and more complicated, just so you're forced to look at more ads, it can be useful. I'd rather just talk to a human being.
I would boycott it until they let you have a curly mustache avatar, Robert.
Well, they do. I mean, and that's the thing. Like my business, like we run events in VR. Like, but that's awesome. So like we have to give our clients Oculus Quests. And so like we send out like a whole bunch of Oculuses and like we have to train people on how to use these. And then but then like you get all these pings from like the Oculus version of Messenger, and like they have to be tied to their Facebook accounts. And then like we'll be inside Spatial, and then like suddenly like their Facebook avatar will pop up like inside Spatial, like while we're running an event. And it's just like, I mean, so but like we give the clients the option, like, do you want the $900 version that doesn't require you to be logged into Facebook, or do you want the $300 version that does? And across the board, they're always like, oh yeah, give us the $300 version instead of the $900 version. So,
Well, I've just got to, 20 seconds on what business that is that you invite people into a virtual arena. I'm intrigued. Which business
You're
is that?
mailing out Oculus. That's amazing.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, that's so like we run virtual events for so like as the CTO, like I have to make sure everything's secure. But like I mean, part of my business is consulting and strategy consulting. So like I mean, in the new world, like I mean, this is what they're trying to create. Like you're connecting people around the world, and like something like spatial, like you can have somebody in Japan, and you can have somebody in Oakland, and they come into spatial and they feel like they're in the same room
So,
together.
so the metaverse already exists, and Robert Jacobi's commented privately to me, Heather Meta or Meta Heather. Whichever one. I'm going to move on from Facebook because Jonathan, may have a heart attack there. We're going to spend 2 or 3 minutes looking at the unredacted antitrust about Google, having a little conversation about basically these mega companies telling us fibs. What do you reckon? Sally, give us your view on this.
Well, I've heard a lot of people have misgivings about AMP from the beginning, and it only ever really seemed to be like something that might be interesting if you were basically like a newspapery sort of company. So I'm not that surprised. I mean, the reduction in revenue, well, if you're not showing ads, then that might happen. But yeah, it's just like, all right, so now we have, a clear indicator that, not only was AMP not good for the average website owner, it wasn't good for anybody else either. They diddled some of their numbers in order to like try to make it seem better, but it wasn't. And it's it's one of those things where in some respects it's shocking and yet it's not surprising.
Gotcha. Right, Jonathan, what do you think about all this nonsense about you love a bit of transparency, don't you? You like people to be transparent. You're about as transparent as a glass door because you just tell everyone what you think of them. So what do you reckon about this story?
Well, do no evil, is it? Just
They
classic.
took that out though, didn't they?
They do no evil, Saint Google, are not so saintly as we thought. Big surprise, really. How much money do you need? The money's just pouring, literally just pouring in. Yet they still got to get up to these shenanigans. How much money do they want?
Well, I think what they're doing, what all these companies are worried about, and I don't know whether Google's IPO'd or anything. I can't remember whether it's an IPO'd company, but they're shareholder driven. Doesn't matter whether they're private shareholders or whether they're public shareholders, and they do lots of kind of actuarial work, I would say, sort of working out what the future of the money is.
I think
they're worried about making money, and that's it, because they're going to run out of making the money that they make.
I think we had all this discussion in the 30s when it came to electricity and other utilities. Basically, Google should be split up and portions of it are a utility, just like Facebook should be split up. And really, when you have a monopoly situation, they have to be treated in a different way as a utility, as what the electricity companies and other sectors where there's no real competitive, the cleansing force of competition cannot apply. They need to be regulated and treated like utilities. It's quite obvious, really.
Right. Mr. Jacobi, hosting. One would say that there are quite a few very, very large hosting companies like EIG or Newfold, and there's GoDaddy. Should they be turned into utilities because they can kind of take over the world? What do you reckon?
Oh, it's too easy to the barrier to entry for hosting is actually disturbingly trivial. So, I mean, I could set up a hosting company in my home office right now. So that's very different. Being able to acquire billions and billions of pieces of information and hold on to them, I can't do. No one here in this podcast can do. So that monopolization of whatever resource was where it gets Google in trouble. And
does America need a monopolies commission? It doesn't have one, does it? It's got antitrust, does it? What's that? In the UK, we've got a thing called a monopolies commission. The irony is there's only one of them. Heather, what do you think?
No. I mean that's what it is. Like the antitrust is the monopolies commission here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think absolutely. The problem with Google, like the reason that it split itself up into all of the different companies is to say like, oh, well, if you're trying to split us up, then we can easily spin out. And we already have different CEOs of the different divisions. So like they were preparing themselves for like being busted. Like when like back in the 80s and the late 70s, when the Bells like got split, that was just one utility and there weren't separate entities. And like the major utilities, like the Carnegies and the Rockefellers and all of them had set up back in the early 1900s when the antitrust first came into play. Like that was just one railroad, one steel company, one thing. There weren't individuals. So like they're basically protecting themselves already against all of this.
And that's exactly what Meta's doing. Same thing. So Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook can all be split out.
Yeah, and that's. I was going to ask Spencer's opinion on that. Is that what Facebook are doing? That's exactly what Facebook are doing with Meta, right, Spencer?
Yeah, I mean, basically, the Facebook thing is that they see the handwriting on the wall. They're not stupid, and the walls are closing in. So if you look at the Sherman Act or the Clayton Antitrust Acts that were used against the railroad barons back in the 20s and 30s, like Jonathan was talking about, they essentially came in and did what they did. Now, there's only a way to do that when politically it's popular. Facebook has garnered enough animosity towards it that I don't think it would be hard to get both sides of the aisle on board with the idea of making an example of them. With regard to the AMP story, I am not that smart, but I like it when I'm right. I talked about a year or two ago about how ridiculous AMP's claims were that if you don't use AMP, then nobody will ever find you. And this is just another example of how people will buy anything that's promoted to them if they don't use their own, let's say, logical thought process. The fact that you somehow weren't going to be able to get people to use your website on a mobile browser or anything, even if you had a responsive WordPress site, was just patently absurd. Well, here's why it was absurd: because they were lying to you. And in the same way, Facebook has been caught lying so many times, the latest of which is the Apple debacle, because Apple, billionaire, trillionaire one, goes, let's go after Facebook. Documents are revealed that they're going after Facebook. Facebook's response, let's give the middle finger to all of our customers by surreptitiously tracking the hell out of them anyway, even though their phones were telling them that they're not being tracked. And either way, we know we're going to get caught. So when we get caught, we're going to cut the cord that essentially is like keeping everybody hanging from our balloon and let you all fall to earth. Those who want to join us up in our meta balloon can join us. And those that don't, well, it was nice knowing you. And that's what's going to happen.
Awesome. Right. That's the last word on that. We're going to take a little break for another sponsor break because we couldn't survive without them. And we're very grateful for them. So we'll see you in a couple of seconds. But we're going to be talking about LinkedIn launches a freelancer network. So see you in a couple of seconds. And we're back. We're talking about LinkedIn launches global freelancer platform to compete directly with Upwork and Fiverr. What's the panel's view? We're all WordPressers here. We've all used freelancers. Are we going to use LinkedIn to hire freelancers, or are we going to stick to what we know, like Codable and Upwork, and people have got a proven track record? What's the crack, Stephanie?
I think this makes total sense.
Cool.
I think this makes total sense. LinkedIn. I mean, when you're ready to get a new job, where's the first place you go to polish up your resume? You go on LinkedIn. Like that's where people go to get jobs. Like it makes complete sense to me that this would be applied. I actually, like, when I read this, I was like, why haven't they done this earlier? Like, what's taking so
Well,
long?
they sort of did with the Pro Finder. I'm not 100% sure how all these distinctions break out, but
When my favorite part of the article was that they are running a quiet beta of 2 million users.
Well, they got a few. What have they got? 800, 900 million.
800
users?
million.
don't
I know,
how
but
many they
still, a quiet beta. Just 2 million of our closest friends.
Just a
are
little
gonna help
few,
us.
just a few, Stephanie, isn't it?
Jonathan, you use freelancers occasionally. Where do you go when you
Me?
want to find it? Yeah, when you want to find a freelancer. Where
That's
do
why I
you go?
use this show to meet quality WordPress people. Why do you think I do it? Basically, but to be, it's like what Stephanie said. It's a natural, but the problem, Stephanie, it's LinkedIn. They're incapable of doing anything the right way. To say that they're the sloths of the internet would be a slight understatement. They just are incapable of implementing anything in an efficient way. So it's a great idea and it should work. But the problem is, Stephanie, as we all know, it's LinkedIn, so they probably won't pull it off.
I love the idea too that you have to kind of be. It's kind of like the Tinder of job searching. Like, you have to match. You have to be matched first, and because, like, who here has put
You've
a
got to
post?
be virtual.
Who's put it on Facebook, LinkedIn, anywhere, and been like, hey, I need a dev to do this. And you're just like, or like, hey, we're hiring. And then you get like, take the week off because you're going to be reading horrible resumes for, like, I mean, you just get hundreds of them. And so if you're just looking for like the freelance world, I'm not talking about like high level positions and stuff like that. But, so now when you get in here where you sort of have to have connections or you have to reach out with certain requirements or things like that, like they're limiting it so that flood doesn't happen, I think, which like you say, who knows if it'll actually work, but I think that that's a great concept.
Oh, now I'm changing my recommendation for the week.
Well, Heather, I want your opinion of it, because I know that you're an implementer and a marketer, and you've started stuff up, pretty big stuff as well. Why do you think Jonathan's got that view that LinkedIn aren't very good at implementing things?
Well, I mean, just think of all the things that they have shut down. But I mean, that's another thing that Reed has done over the years at LinkedIn. Like, I mean, he's of the opinion, like, same as me, like, if you wait too long to implement something, then you'll never do it. So like he's the 80% person, just like me, that like you just stick it out there, see if it works, and if not, then like you just kill your darlings. So
you wait until you're 80% ready. I always wait until I'm about 60%.
Well,
ready,
yeah, no, I mean that's the thing. Like, I mean, so I mean, most of the things on Fiverr, for example, like they're just automated stuff that somebody could do like they could do it themselves if they wanted to, but like they're just going to pay somebody else to do it. And a lot of the stuff on LinkedIn, like, I mean, I don't even go on, I have an automated response on my LinkedIn thing because most of it is just people seeing the word CTO or investor in my title. And then they're like either sending me a pitch deck or they're like a dev group in India that wants to sell me something. And I'm sure like no matter what your title is, you're getting a similar thing for whatever your title is. So
nobody ever wants to talk to me, Heather. I wonder why.
But I mean, the point is, if you actually are trying to find somebody on LinkedIn for in like a job, the likelihood of you finding them across the 900 million users is so low now that like being able to have a marketplace specifically for that, I think that's a good idea. But it's the people that are going to respond or the people that are going to sign up there. It's going to be the same people that are on Fiverr. It's going to be the same people that are elsewhere.
I'm not sure I agree with you there, because Fiverr is like you say, I got a video intro done on Fiverr the other day. It cost me $12 and it saved me 4 hours of my own time. So it's a low point of entry. I was really quite happy with it. The guy got 5 stars and everything, and I've used Fiverr on many occasions, but when I go to Codable, I'm looking at $75 an hour minimum. When I go to Upwork, I've got to really choose the price that I want to pay, which I'm not sure. I like to know what people feel they should get. And I like to pay a fair price.
Right.
But the point about LinkedIn, I think the price of entry is going to be really quite high. I mean, I don't think it's going to be like
they know how to charge.
But based on the people that are contacting me all the time, I mean, I'm getting like China and Russia are most of the people that are contacting me as developers. So, I mean, I'm thinking the prices are going to be very low. And then Americans are going to have to be like, wait a second, if all of these developers are saying they'll do things for $12 an hour, then where am I going to go?
Quite well, Robert Jacobi, you're director of WordPress. How many LinkedIn connections do you get? Are you even on LinkedIn?
Well, so unlike, I guess I'm on all of them, but every morning there's at least 20 LinkedIn in-mails for how to increase sales, and so there's an immense amount of crap that gets sent because people can automate this stuff. I think
we met through LinkedIn. I did outreach to you, but I didn't try and I just said, do you want to come on some crappy podcast?
Well, yeah, but that's my keyword. When it says crappy, I'm in. So I'm totally on that.
What do you think?
I've already gotten a LinkedIn request from Robert during this show, by the way.
Oh yeah, I hit everyone up. I was like, why not?
He's finding it so interesting.
Slide into the DMs, Robert.
What I'm concerned about LinkedIn, we've got 3 women on board now, and I want to address the types of messages you're getting. I don't get any inappropriate messages, but what do you do about the inappropriate messages you're going to get, and how is that going to go through onto the development side, the freelancer side that they're going to go? Because people in LinkedIn seem to be pretty much out of control, just like people in Facebook. No.
I don't never gotten an inappropriate message on LinkedIn. Not of that sort.
Not on LinkedIn. I get them on Quora. Like on Quora all the time. It's like, hello, beautiful. Your smile is so wonderful.
Oh, dear. No.
It's only because
would you like to be friends with me?
I get the devs from India, but not.
Please say that again, Eva. That was lovely. Sorry.
No, I am seeing posts from women on LinkedIn that they're getting inappropriate messages, and we've got it's a 50-50 situation here. I bet Spencer's getting inappropriate messages with his nice curly hair and everything. What's going on?
The thing about LinkedIn is when I first used it in the early days, I thought it was a really it was a clean place to be in terms of the messages were appropriate to like, hey, let's do some business, let's interact. The problem is, I agree anecdotally with what the other female members of the cast here are talking about, because I see that the way that they put people into my feed is directly related to who I was just searching for. So if I happen to have a conversation with somebody who's an attractive female, let's say, like 50 other attractive females show up, and I find that if the behavior of the other business people is anything similar, it's a bit of a cesspool. For example, people now will hit me up, like Robert says, 15, 20 people a day I've never had a conversation with. And instead of, hi, I'd like to talk to you about something, would you be open to talking? Instead, they just dump their truck.
It's just terrible, isn't it?
It's just like the first interaction is just to dump their truck on my lawn. And I immediately go, you're an asshole, sorry, and that's it. We're never going to talk again, because they don't even understand the basics of how human psychology works. So
yeah, I saw your profile. We seem to be in the same area. I just want a quick chat. No, you just get a 50.
I mean, it happens on Facebook Messenger too. And I actually been doing, like, I bet in my head, like a little test. Somebody says they want to be friends with me on my Facebook profile, my professional one. And I look at their profile and I see who their friends are and whatever. I go, I bet with myself, 60-40, this person's going to immediately spam me. And I test it. I say, yes, immediately spam me. Yeah. And then I'm like, it's no satisfaction because I'd rather be wrong. But that's the problem we face right now, is that it's too easy. I wanted to make a comment about the job part of it. I actually feel that Upwork does a reasonable job of vetting people and cleaning up their mess. So if you are I'm just saying, relatively speaking, if you were Codeable, I mean, that's really super duper competitive and super cleaned up, but you'll never get a job there because there's 10 other people who are, going to get everything. But at Upwork, there's a chance of actually winning customers, but you have to be very strategic. The problem I'm wondering about with this LinkedIn, even though it makes a lot of sense, is will the same difficulties of the spam coming at you be hit up? Because I was phished once on LinkedIn. I was phished once by a recruiter who I thought was legit, and I went too far and actually put my driver's license and other things in, and I felt like a schmuck. But like they legitimately worked out a really good phishing scheme on me, because I'm not usually easily caught with that. But that's the problem.
Yeah.
Right. Well, last word on this, I think, because I think we're all in agreement that it's a good idea, aren't we?
Well, it is a good idea, but like I say, it's LinkedIn. You know, we've got to face facts. They're like what Heather said, their track record of implementing good ideas. It's a bit like them taking over lynda.com. You know, yeah, it's a great idea and they haven't destroyed it, but they've not exactly done much with it either. I'm sorry, they just haven't. There's all sorts of great things you could have done with that purchase. What have they done with it? How, you know, not much, in my opinion.
Well, you know, I'm experienced in selling companies and everything, and you can't guarantee that the company that is going to buy you is going to do a good job, right? Or going to be as motivated as you. So the people that owned lynda.com, I think it was Australians, wasn't it? You know, lots of good stuff comes out of Australia. You know, lynda.com was the most successful online learning platform, wasn't it, for a while, and it got sold for a few billion, or LinkedIn bought it for a couple of billion or something. But the point is when you sell a company, you actually don't care what the other company's going to do with it after you're out of it, and you know, unless you're emotionally attached to it, you know. So you've got to, with LinkedIn, they are so big, bought by Microsoft, or Microsoft invested in them, and all that kind of stuff. So you've got the behemoths of this world, the Microsofts, the massive companies buying these other companies up. You're going to see some stuff that's not, you know, that's not growing. What's happened to Tumblr? You know, where's that gone? Is that still in existence? Did Robert Jacobi, did you ever use Jacobi? Did you ever use Tumblr?
I've gone to it once or twice. I'm waiting to see what Matt does with it. Let's just.
He's had 2 years.
Yeah, how long does he need, Robert?
I mean, goodness, Stephanie, you've obviously used Tumblr. You've put your beautiful red hair on there, I'm sure.
I miss Tumblr. I've thought about that, like, because you know, when we make websites, we do all this stuff. Like, I loved the idea of just having like such a simple, basic place to just go and like post stuff without like, it's now like I think of stuff all the time. And I'm like, I need like a personal space to just post things that I think about it that I like. And it's like, oh, it's too much pressure because I'd have to build a whole website and have it designed and maintain it and blah, blah, blah. It was just kind of a nice little, like, and it was different than posting it on Facebook. So it was more of the blog style, you know, I don't know.
But let's be frank, let's be fair about this. There's certain companies that buy other companies and that you go there to die. It's like being bought by GoDaddy. If your company's bought by GoDaddy, it's there to die. If you're bought by LinkedIn, it will never be heard again. It's bought to die, isn't it? You know, if you're bought by Automatic, you know, you go to die, basically.
It's not true. I mean, GoDaddy turned,
you know, let's be frank about it.
GoDaddy turned some of their purchases into their own products. They changed the name and they improved upon them. And you've got GoDaddy Pro.
Piss house in a brewery. Let's be frank.
I don't accept that at all. Anyway, moving swiftly on, we're going to talk about one of my favorite things, which is Gutenberg. And we've got WP Chill. They take over Gutenberg forms from a really good friend of mine, Manur Kamal, who sold Page Editor or Editor Plus to Extendify and was part of their team for a while. I think he's still on their team doing stuff with some great, you know, Manur's just a great guy, but obviously didn't have time to keep up with his Gutenberg form. So what do you think about forms in Gutenberg? Because is it a necessity? We've got Contact Form 7, we've got Ninjas, we've got WeForms. What do you reckon? So is it going to die? It's like, you know, Heather, you've taken over a few companies.
Yeah, no, I think that having somebody, I mean, it's necessary to have like a simple form that's available. And the fewer the more lightweight plugins there are, the better. This one's pretty lightweight, but I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't install it. But I mean, when people are searching for something, like if they're looking for like a form, it's going to pop up, and having somebody that is managing it is better than not.
Right, Spencer, you're using Gutenberg extensively, thanks to Sally Getch. What do you reckon? Do you want a form builder as a block?
I spoke to Chris Lubkert about various other things with Extendify and their plans, and
Name dropper.
It doesn't surprise me. Did I say that wrong? Lubkert?
Name dropper.
No, I'm saying he's in the article. The reason I'm bringing it up is not because he's hard to reach. He's available. You can talk to him if you want.
I better read
His phone number is.
He's not like the LearnDash founder who you have to make an appointment with God to see. But Justin is impossible to reach. Chris is easy to reach. The point was, in the conversation, I asked him what's going on, because it seemed like they spent a lot of money on a couple of products, and the feeling I got from him is that they're really focused on the higher level, audience thing, and that their plans are months, if not years, in the making. My opinion on the forms thing, having become comfortable with Gutenberg, is this. We're going to see a shakeout and a consolidation, because truthfully, the mechanics of forms are already figured out by the big players. It's just the display of those particular products that we need. So it seems odd to me to reinvent that wheel natively and all of the things that go along with it, when it would be more logical to just simply have an interface that works in Gutenberg. And I think that's already sort of happening as it is. I right now, for example, lean heavily on Gravity Forms because it's the granddaddy of all of them. But at the same time, if you, again, are comfortable with Fluent Forms or one of the other early adopters, they work fine. We don't need 20, 30 different forms plugins. We just don't. So somebody has to bow out, and the ones that exist really just have to make their interfaces work natively with Gutenberg.
Spencer doesn't want a monopoly. He doesn't want there to be too many things. He doesn't want only one thing. It's got to be just
no,
right.
You know what it's like? It's like if you go, I mean, Stephanie, you have a good point. It's like when you go to the supermarket, right? If you look, I don't drink pop, but if you go to the soda pop aisle, there's like 47 different soda pops, and they're actually owned by 3 bottling brands. There are instances where people like the choice. It gives a good feeling to think that there's actually difference. But what I found in my business and for consulting experience, that confusion is causing anxiety, and it's holding back the WordPress space. Like, people have analysis paralysis of which plugins need to go together. It would be so more empowering if there was one choice, literally, as a default.
Yeah, I mean,
like 3.
I mean, the paradox.
And I know if you're into e-learning, a company that can consult you and help you in that space.
I mean, again, there's a benefit to everybody in the space, because obviously we benefit from helping people solve the pain of analysis paralysis. But, like if you went to another SaaS platform, like a ClickFunnels even. ClickFunnels doesn't, or Shopify, let's say. Shopify doesn't give you 20 different versions of the form feature, or Wix. By the way, I have to just say, I used Wix this weekend because there's some rumors going around, about who's buying what, and I love that. But I gotta tell you, I was shocked and stunned in a pleasant way at how incredibly awesome that entire experience was. It was so awesome that on a scale of 1 to 10, if I put Wix at a 10, it would put WordPress at a 1. But the differentiator is still, Wix is a walled garden. It's a gilded cage.
I see where you're coming from, but I think my only comment of what you just said, Spence, is I think you're comparing 2 very different beasts, because you're comparing like a SaaS focused one. Well, Shopify, because of all their add-ons, has become a kind of hybrid, but it's got a focus where I see WordPress as an actual platform, like what Jonathan Wells
did. One is buying a condominium, and one is going to Home Depot. Okay, Wix is a condominium, and Home Depot is WordPress.
I agree with you on that. I want Robert
It actually
Jacobi.
makes me think of all the sort of Apple versus PC arguments that a lot of things can work more smoothly on Apple because they know exactly what the hardware is.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it's always going to be consistent, and there are some things that makes much easier. But there are also the limitations that go with it.
But that's the point, Sally. That is the point. There's a fork in the road. You have to make a choice upon go left or right, red pill, blue pill. Do I ever want to control and own this thing that I'm going to make? If the answer is yes, even a tiny yes, you must go WordPress. If the answer is absolutely not, you go into the Wix. And I mean, my God, was that experience amazing. And everything is there at a high level. And I'm not saying I can guarantee it works, but man, if I was a person who just said, I want to launch a A, B, C, D, and E today, and I didn't care if I owned it in the future, hands down, the experience.
I think that's a weak argument. Mr. Jacobi,
Thank
you're
you.
director of WordPress. CloudWays, are they thinking about SaaS? I mean, CloudWays is a SaaS in its own right. So are they thinking about anything to do with WordPress, making it SaaS, hosting it themselves, not using any third-party people?
Hold on. Everyone can't see me like locking my mouth. Everything's going SaaS. I mean, it's a no-brainer. It's Spencer talks about the fork in the road, but who cares? The customer is the one who just wants something done, and we're all knee deep in the open source world, WordPress world, and there are so many personal, professional, and economic benefits to all that, but 99.999% of the world really doesn't care. Like, if my car had an open source engine, I would not like it more or less. I need it to take me to the grocery store. That's
so is there snobbery in our WordPress community about Wix, Shopify, all that?
Of course.
God.
Yeah. But why does that exist? Because the simple fact of the matter is that we are open source, right? So I'm going to take that first word, open. We need to open our minds like Spencer has. He managed to open his mind to Gutenberg. Yeah. We need to open our minds to third-party solutions.
Yeah, but I think
work for the customer.
I just want to end it because I just want to say Spencer really understands this, because Spencer's been bitten a little bit. And I've got a guest coming on my interview show, the founder, Rayleigh, that built a multi-million-dollar business on Shopify. And he had a similar experience what Spencer had when you try and build another business on top of an enclosed platform, what the consequences can be. Spencer's been there, he knows the consequence, and so does Rayleigh know. It's so important, if you like what Spencer said, if you really going to build something really important, you need to build it on something that's open.
It's an extension of the Facebook conversation. And anybody can look up my name in TechCrunch and you can see, but the point is this: you can make a deal with the devil. You can, I say, lock yourself in a gilded cage. The seductive nature of how easy it is on a SaaS platform, any of them, but especially Wix, is like, bring it on. Oh my God. And then you realize you've succeeded. And then you realize somebody else, whether it's Zuckerberg or the guy who founded Wix, holds the keys to your entire kingdom. And then there's the other argument, which is there are still things that can be done on WordPress by people who hire independents, coders, and so forth. You can't do that on a SaaS platform because you can either inject it with JavaScript or you can beg them on your, bended knee for adding something to the feature set. But in WordPress, you just do it. So it's really hard to make this choice. It's like asking an 18-year-old to decide what you want to do when you're 50 years old. Good luck. But I'm telling you, as Jonathan, thank you for, I taught for 10 years, don't make the mistake of going into a gilded cage if you can go into WordPress. If WordPress can just get a couple steps closer to this experience, I'm not saying there shouldn't be competition and multiple soda bottle pops on the shelf. I'm saying, how about if out of the box, the default experience was closer to this, and then you still could have your choices.
Well,
And
I think that's what Nexus and Liquid Web are trying to do with
I
their
think that's what
product.
Elementor's going to do when Wix buys them.
Well, yeah, I
Anyway,
mean,
we're gonna
Elementor
just,
Cloud is going to be the big one now that pops, or is popping, I guess.
Is Nexus and Liquid Web doing that? Yeah, is that what you?
No, I was saying Elementor Cloud.
Elementor Cloud is going to. I'm going to name drop, but when I talked in detail to Chris Lemma about their plans at Nexus, I don't think that their plans are to do what Elementor Cloud is going to be. I think what their plans are to do is that they're looking for hosting clients and like WP Engine. Here, everything you have is in the bucket, and we don't care what you use. Whereas I think the Elementor Cloud is going to be the WordPress version of Wix, which is exactly the kind of thing that I think could be useful. Other than I hope it doesn't limit you to only using Elementor. I hope it still has at least Gutenberg at its heart.
Well, and
we need to get on to the
I need to just grab control here for a second. But on the Elementor Cloud thing, is that not a gilded cage? But anyway, let's move on. We do need to.
If it still allows you access to the hosting and the SFTP and stuff, it wouldn't be. Whereas Wix, you only have REST API access, or you have access through a JavaScript, which is not control. They run the code on their own
code and stuff like that. Right, moving on. Right, it's because we're running out of time. We've got 3 minutes, people. And because we've got a special guest today, Robert Jacobi, have you got a recommendation of the week?
Recommendation of the week. Wow.
10 seconds to think about that because somebody else has.
Someone else take it.
Jonathan Denwood.
Yeah, my recommendation is a service that gets rid of backgrounds for you. It's Remove. Good name, remove.bg. And they uses artificial intelligence, and it does a fantastic job, and it's free.
Brilliant. I'm going to do a recommendation now before I ask anyone else, before I forget it. I've been using ClickUp for about a month and a half now, and I love it. So go and have a little go at it. They've just got 400 million quid put into the bank, or $400 million. So they're going to be around for a little while. They're growing. I love the attitude of the CEO, and I love ClickUp, and I'm starting to really use it properly. Heather, what's your recommendation? You've normally got a good one.
So mine this week is interviewer.ai. If you're trying to hire somebody, or if you're trying to vet people for any kind of position, this is an AI tool where you can set your questions that you want people to answer, and a little bit of a pre-screen. And then it acts as an AI recruiter tool for you. And then like all you have to do is then look at the video that the person recorded for you, and it checks the score and see their suitability for the job for you before you even actually have to talk to them.
That sounds really cool. Sally Getch, rhymes with sketch. What you got?
I'm going to recommend the LT browser, which has become completely free forever. This is a tool for web developers to simulate different kinds of devices and check that their website is actually working.
Cool. And Robert Jacobi, yes, you can recommend what you wanted to recommend. Of course, we're allowed to be self-serving on here.
Horribly self-serving. Of course, I'm going to recommend CloudWays. I'm trying to think outside of the obvious box, but to keep in line with everyone else. I still love redirection as a plugin, and I think everyone should have that because I think it's one of the easiest, most brain dead things that actually works.
Please, panel, make sure and do it for Robert.
Slack.
Put it all in Slack, please.
Yeah, we got it. Stephanie Hudson, I love your recommendations. Come on, because you kind
Really?
of think of them on the spot.
Good.
Yeah, really.
No, I think ahead of time. I just seem like I don't. Today I'm recommending a little app called Jump Desktop, and it's I got a new Mac. I got one of the M1 Mac Minis, and I have a MacBook Pro still, one of the old ones, until I replace it. Can't wait. But I haven't had two computers, and now all of a sudden everything I need is on the other computer, whichever one it is. And this is a nice little utility that lets you access things. And I know there's a bunch of things that do that, but this just worked really seamlessly, and it is in Setup, which is another one of my favorite recommendations.
Perfect. All right, make sure that's put in the chat so I can put it into Slack. Spencer Foreman, what you got?
our old friend of the show, Morten Rand Hendrickson, posted in LinkedIn, and I saw his article about Visual Studio hosted version, which, first of all, I love that I saw him there. And he did like I think it was a YouTube short, maybe it was a TikTok, but it was like vertical format. And I thought that was like clever because I've been thinking, how could you put tech tips into that kind of thing, right? He did a good job. I tried it out, vscode.dev. I don't use Visual Studio, I use Sublime, but I was more than happy about this because there are times when I'm like, oh, I can't be bothered to launch my IDE, or I just want to look at something really quick. And it's a full-fledged, text editor and, code tool for anybody who wants to get a little geeky. But you don't have to do anything. Just go to the URL. Ta-da. It's almost like one of those visual editing tools that I use, like Imager or something,
Awesome. Right. Now, that is the end of this. Everyone's had their recommendation, I believe. So thanks, crew. Thanks, Robert Jacobi, for turning up. And Stephanie, nice to see you. Heather, always nice to see you. Sally as well. Jonathan Denwood and I, and anybody that chooses to stay will go on for the extra for the WP-Tonic Facebook page. What I want to say, first of all, is that Jonathan and I really want to hear from plugin developers, specifically ones that feel that they don't get the exposure that they deserve, or they've developed something great. And you can contact us through our personal channels at Arnie Palmer on Twitter for me, and Jonathan, you can contact us through the WP-Tonic Facebook mastermind page. So go and look for that on Facebook, see if you can contact us, and we're really interested in talking to you about that. But on our extra, we can say goodbye to the guests that don't have time to stick around, but we're going to be talking about forms and what their role is in WordPress, and how we can, which forms we like and which forms that the panel, if they remain, love as well. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.